All right, let's dive right on into stand up. What did we learn yesterday?
Box model.
Box model. What did we learn about the box model? What are the kind of three main properties that we look at in the box model?
Padding, border, and margin.
You got it. So margin is kind of the spacing between items. That is the furthest outer rim of the box. Then we move into the padding. I'm sorry, into the border. Border is really only the visible spot, right? And then inside of there, we have the padding. So if you want to think about it as padding is almost making the content bigger, it's giving it more breathing room, as opposed to margin, which is kind of creating space between different elements. We learned more about styling, right? We went into, I don't know, about 10 different CSS properties that are very commonly used, from font family to margin, to color, to border, all of that kind of stuff. We dived into a little bit about Bootstrap, right? We learned how to link in that element so that we could use that, those columns. So we're going to be definitely spending a little bit more time on the Bootstrap grid today. We're going to learn how to size different columns. We're going to go through an exercise of planning out those columns so we can kind of figure out, hey, this is our objective. Before we dive headfirst into the code, how do we kind of plan all of that out? And then we're going to spend a brief moment on Bootstrap components, just so you know that that world is available to you. And then we'll fire up and get started on the weather project. So that's what's coming down the pipeline. But back to what we learned yesterday. We learned about 3 different selectors, how we can select in CSS based off of the name of the element. Hey, go grab me all the P tags, or go grab me all the H1s. We learned about IDs, and IDs have to be unique. That's where we use our #sign in the CSS to select. And then we also have our classes. That's where we use the period in our CSS selector. And major difference between classes and IDs are classes can be reused across multiple elements to make it a little bit easier to select everything. Jen, we are fully remote, but Classroom 445 should be open and unlocked. It is not.
There's a class in there.
Uh
447 is unlocked, but there's somebody sitting at the desk.
And 445 is like an active
There's
class?
a whole class in there.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me.
That's all right. You know what? I'm just gonna go back home and then log back in.
I'm sorry about that. We do
It's
have
okay.
that room reserved.
It's okay. I can catch up.
Give me 1 second though. There is a chance I got the room number wrong. And that there is a room open in the other building. Give me 1 second to check that though.
It's all right. I'm just gonna go home and I'll log back in there and I'll try to catch up.
Okay, sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, it's all right. Thanks.
Give me 1 second to. All right, well, I will follow up with that after class.
I don't know if you saw the text, but I think it's Goon Hall.
It is 408, but I was checking to see if that was supposed to be for yesterday. We were supposed to have that 408 yesterday and then 445 today. But we'll work that out just so we don't have any issues for our next in-person week. Okay, let me check up on the chat here. We learned about not only about our 3 different selectors, but also about where we can put our styling, right? How we can use that style attribute and put our CSS styling right in line. Or we learned yesterday how to create a separate style sheet, a separate file, link the two together and put our styling in there. And then finally, we can use that style tag up in the head of the document and drop our styling in there as well. We also learned about how to make comments in our HTML, right? Comments are basically telling the computer, hey, this doesn't matter. This isn't going to affect our output. The whole point of the comment is just so we can leave ourselves notes or comments in it, so that when we come back to it or we reference it down the road, it's a little bit easier to understand it. Is there anything else from yesterday that we wanted to touch on? We learned, yeah, about the inspect tool in Chrome. That's a really helpful one as well, right? Sometimes we can't visually see why our output isn't looking the way we want it to. And the inspect tool is kind of a good stepping stone, right? Because we know what our code looks like and we know how the browser is showing it, but sometimes we want to understand why the browser is showing it that way. And that's why that inspect tool is certainly helpful. Plus throughout that we use Bootstrap containers, rows, and columns that can help align our content and lay it out. So we'll be spending some time tonight practicing more of that, right? Diving a little bit more into the rows and columns, how we can size columns differently, how we can have multiple rows. And then in that weather project, we're going to get hands-on experience of being able to intermix some of our own styling with some of the Bootstrap grid layout to complete a full website the way that we want. We also use we also learned about divs for the first time. Divs are short for dividers. They're really just a box to put our content in, right? It's something that we can apply some styling to, whether that's from a class or an ID, and make that all work. We also learned about self-closing, and then the link tag is one of the only exceptions where you don't really self-close the link. It won't really break anything, but it is preferred in your HTML that you don't self-close the link. Anything else from yesterday? Hopefully this is just you can see the benefits of this exercise every day, kind of just get us started based off of where we left off. When you guys get out into the workforce, that's always a big problem, right? Your brain is fried at 5 o'clock or whenever your work day ends. All you want to do is get out of there. You shut down your computer, you come in the next day, there are 100 different open windows still left on your laptop, and you're like, where did I leave off, right? How do I get started today? And you kind of have to chug back up to speed and get the brain going and remember where you left off. So stand up may be a great opportunity to kind of plan all of that out, right? Remember where you left off yesterday makes it much easier to get started today. Noticing that there are some questions about that self-closing tag. So for the link tag, the link is the exception. In the head, you do not need the trailing slash. It is preferred that you don't put the trailing slash in. It's really a technicality, though. If you are in a technical interview, an employer wouldn't like ding you points for having that trailing slash in there. But it is preferred that you leave the trailing slash out of that link tag in the head. Anything else, any concerns, anything that we wanted to follow up on or touch on?
This isn't like super big, but the importance of saving, because when I was trying to rewrite it yesterday, I was like, why isn't it working? And then I was like, oh, the white dot is there. So just kind of looking for that white dot, making sure that we're saving along the way so that we can actually see.
Absolutely. Saving and using the live server as well, right? remembering to boot up our code that way so we can see it as we go. And I'm glad you brought that up. You may be tempted to say, all right, hold on, I fell behind with Max a little bit. This isn't showing up. Let me just keep on going with whatever he's doing and I'll figure it out eventually. Please, please, please do not do that. Because what ends up happening is if you can't see what your code is doing, you have no idea how wrong it is until you actually get that fixed. So if you're coding along and you're only a minute or two behind and you know a break is coming up, that's fine, right? But if you reach that point where you're like, my code isn't working, it's fine, I'll just power through it. Resist that urge. Raise your hand in Zoom. Let me know that you're having an issue. We want to get that resolved because chances are if you're having that issue, someone else is either going to be having that issue as well or can learn from the resolution of that, right? So you guys may have already started to pick up, hey, these problems that we're solving in class, someone else already had that issue and we already got the resolution for them, right? Another reason why it's really important when questions get asked, these aren't just questions that the person may be struggling on. These are questions that you may be running into, if not that class, maybe a little bit later on as well. So the questions are good. Make sure everyone tunes in and resist that urge to just keep on going along. Any professional developer will tell you that when you get stuck on an issue, it's usually best not to avoid the issue and keep going. It's usually best to kind of narrow in on it, get that issue resolved, and then keep on working on it from there. Okay, anything else before we dive into code? Okay, so we are going to fire up. We're going to just spend a little bit more time in our code from yesterday. Normally we would move this over to the day 3 folder, but because we're just going to add a couple more things on this and play around with it, we're going to leave it in the day 2 folder. And then from there, once we switch over to working with the weather app for the first time, that's when we'll get our day 3 folder set up and open all of that stuff up. So I am going to share my screen here. I'm going to open VS Code. Hopefully you have that in your doc now. If you don't, go to the applications folder. We're going to go file, open folder. If you already have your code from yesterday open, that's totally fine. You're going to pop open day 2 and hit open. And we're going to make sure that we've got that Bootstrap file open. That's where we're going to be working. I am also going to start a live share with you guys. In order for you to join that, you are going to go file. You are going to go file new window. That will bring up your window here. You're going to head over to the little live share icon. You are going to click the join button and then down at the bottom, continue as anonymous. Then up here, it's probably going to ask you for your name. Go ahead and enter your name and hit enter. And then when you get to that URL step, you are going to head over to the Zoom chat. And you are going to right click on that link and hit copy link. Do not highlight the text. To copy it, right click on the link directly. From there, you are going to head back over into your other VS Code window. You are going to paste that link in and hit enter. And then that should bring up my copy of the code. Finally, we are going to fire up our live server so we can figure out where we left off. In order to do that, you are going to go down to the Go Live button. Go ahead and click on that. That is going to hopefully pop open Chrome, and you can see where we left off from yesterday. Anyone needs a step repeated there, please let me know, and I will go back through that.
I do, and I figured out how to unmute myself, obviously. Wait a minute. Shh. That was Riley weighing in.
Eva,
So-
did you have a question?
Yeah, could you do the thing? Could you just go through that once more? I'm sorry.
Yep. You're gonna go file.
I had
new
this
window.
problem last night too. Did we do this when I was in that? Was this the same system? Same thing?
I'm not sure. I don't
Okay,
think so.
all right, never mind. yeah.
If you go File, New Window,
Yeah,
over on the left-hand side, there is a live share icon.
Yep.
You are going to hit the join button.
okay,
Then in the bottom right, my screen doesn't show it, but there should be a button that says continue as anonymous.
okay. All right,
Then you are going to enter your name up here and hit enter. And
Okay.
then it should ask you for the URL, which is in the Zoom chat.
okay. Thanks.
Jania, did you have a question?
It was the same thing.
It's like most of you guys are in. Again, it is optional to pull up that live share, but it may be helpful as we are coding along to be able to, navigate the files, see the different code, go from there. Anyone need help before we dive in? Okay. So let's do a quick review of where we left off. We have our first row going on here, and we can see our row right here. We also have two of our columns. We have my first column, which has a paragraph in it, and we've got a second column there. If you don't have a paragraph in here, that's fine. We're just using this as a playground. When we start going in the weather app, that's where it will be more important to kind of match what I have. But right now, this is just a playground to make sure we're understanding these concepts. So we have two equally sized columns, and we can see that pretty easily. But what if we want our left column to be 75% of the screen, and we want our right column to only be 25% of the screen? That may help us in a layout, right? Well, Bootstrap is actually based off of a 12-column system. Can anyone guess why they used 12 instead of 10? Turns out that 12 is divisible by more numbers. Don't worry, if you ever had someone tell you that you need math to be good at programming, they are a complete liar. This is the most complicated math that we'll be doing. Don't panic. It's based off of a 12-column system because if you wanted to break something into 3 columns pretty easily, you could take 12 and divide it by 3 and know that you need 4 column sizes, a column that is 4 across in order to have 3 of those columns on the screen. If we base that off of a 10-column system and we said 10 divided by 3, we would get that repeating decimal, right? And that decimal would be really hard to work with. So it ends up being much easier to divide up 12 available columns into different sizes than it is to divide it by 10. So if we want our column to take up 25% of the screen, we take our 12 available columns and say, hey, if I have one column that's 3 wide and one column that's 9 wide, that's going to get me the percentage that I want. Why? Because 3 divided by 12 is 0.25 and 9 divided by 12 is 0.75. So let's put that into practice. I want my first column to be 9 out of the 12 available spaces across. So I'm going to say col-9. And then in my second column, I'm going to say, hey, I want them to be, I want that other one to only take up 25% of the screen. I only want that one to be 3 across. Now, you notice if we come back over here, my second column has moved, but my blue borders are gone. We're like, well, where did our blue borders go? That's what's helping us understand the sizing of the columns. Well, what happened up here is we targeted the specific column. However, our column is now a col 9 and a col 3. It isn't just a generic col. So in order to solve this, we can put in our -9, and we can actually use a comma here and say we also want it to apply to our col -3. So we go ahead and save that. We come back over here, and now we've got our second column, which is taking up 3 out of the 12 available spaces. And we can also see our first column that is taking up 9 of the available 12 spaces, or 75% of the screen. With all of that said, I would like you guys to practice, add in a new row, and in that row, you should have a column that is 25% of the screen, a column that is 50% of the screen, and a column that is using the remaining 25% of the screen. Give you a visual of what we're going for there. Oops. This is what we want to create in our own code. We want one column that is taking up 25% of the screen, one column that is taking up 50% of the screen, and one column that is taking up 25% of the screen. Remember, our columns are based off of 12 across. So go ahead and give that a try. See if you can add in your new row and create 3 separate columns that are going to produce this output. If you don't have the blue borders on it, that's okay. We just want to make sure that we've got the spacing down right.
Should we do it in the same container or a different container?
You can do it right in the same container, but you do want to add a new row.
Got it.
And I realize you guys can cheat and look at my live share. So I'm going to screenshot this and then take that out of my live share so you can't cheat. And I'm also going to start a poll in Zoom. So while you are still working on this, don't vote in that poll. Once you get it working, say, go ahead and hit sure did. And if you need help, go ahead and raise your hand. But while you're still working on it, just don't vote in that poll.
What was the 3-row percentage? 3, 9, and what?
We want one column to be 25%, one column to be 50%, the other one to be 25%. That's
Okay.
all based off of a 12 system.
Got it.
So you can do a little math there and figure out how we get the full screen across and what size our columns need to be. The other way to think about it is everything needs to add up to 12. So you can see 9 plus 3 add up to 12. That means we've got a full row. So another way to think about it is, well, if we have 2 3-size columns, what is that last column size that we need to take up the rest of the available space? Give everyone 2 more minutes on this, and then we'll work through the solution together.
Done.
Go ahead and vote in that Zoom poll if you haven't already. You guys can't see it, but it live updates on my side, so that way I get a gauge check of who's still working. All right, let's give this a try. So before we write a line of code, we want to plan out kind of how we're going to do this approach, right? So first things first, we're looking here and we go, where do we want our columns to go? We don't want them to be in this row. We want them to go down the page. So whenever we are thinking about our layout, rows are always going to be pushing us down the page. Columns are always going to be getting us across the page. So we don't want our row to be inside this existing row. We want our new row to hold all of our columns to be underneath this existing row. So we need to go find that in our code. Here's our row here, and we left ourselves a note by saying, hey, this div closes out down here. If I'm looking at this div and I click on it, this div lights up. That means, okay, this must be the end of my row, so I can make a new one in there. So I'm going to go ahead and create my div class row. And just to make sure that this is at the right spot, I'm going to go ahead and type in the word test and make sure the word test shows up where I want. Brandy and Shannon, I'll come to you right after this. Okay, so we've got our word test showing up here. And I'm like, all right, that's in the right spot. I don't actually want the word test to be there, though. So I'm going to take out the word test. And now I want to think about, all right, I know I need 3 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and create my first div class col. And now I need to say, hey, col1 is in here, just so we have some text that shows up. That looks like it's at the right spot. But I need to think through my sizing. If I have 12 available spaces and I know one of them is going to be 50%, what number divided by 12 is going to give me that 0.5 or the 50%? Well, if we take 6 and we divide that by 12, that gives me 0.5. That's my 50%. Well, if I've got 6 in the center, that means that I have 6 left. 12 minus 6. Okay, how do we split that? Well, I need 125 and 125. That means that it's going to be a 3, a 6, and a 3 across. Let's make sure that that all works out. I'm going to make this a col3. I'm going to make this a div class col6 and say center col. And then I'm going to add one more div class col3, and this will be my right col. Call this left, hit save. And now we've got our left, our center, and our right. This is taking up 25 or 3 of the 12 spaces. This is taking up 6 of the spaces out of the 12, meaning it is 50% of the screen. And this is taking up 25% of the screen, just like this one is. That means they are both 3s. Brandy and Shannon, what's going on? What are your tech issues?
Okay, I think I'm set. I'm just trying to catch up on the code so
Good.
far. Okay, but I'll let you know.
Yep, no problem.
Max, so what in this code is telling it to divide by that? I mean, I have the divs and all of that. But
So-
what's telling it 50%? I mean, I understand the 12 divided, but I understand that part. But what's telling it to do that?
Because we linked in Bootstrap up here,
Okay.
Bootstrap is saying, hey, a col 6 is always going to take up 50% of the screen.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. That's a good note. If we did not have Bootstrap linked up here, none of these columns or rows or containers would work at all. So this is a good moment. Take a step back. Do you understand the code? Do you understand why we place this div row here? Do we understand why the columns are going inside the row? Do we understand that this closing div is saying this is the end of this column, so we are allowed to start another column in here? Do we understand that all of these together are adding up to 12, and that's why they are laid out the way that they are? Even if you didn't get it working, that's okay. If you're really confused or you really want help on your existing code, go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, we can move on. And don't forget to save and refresh.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
My center column doesn't have the border.
That's fine. So up in the top here, you can see I added in a col 6 that added that border in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what got it styled. You feeling like kind of getting the grid? Feeling like makes sense?
Mines don't look like that, so
Okay. Go ahead, share your screen. Let's take a look together.
I'm. 1 second.
Yep. Okay, so we've got our div class row, but we have an issue. You took our, so first things first, we're gonna fix indentation. So we see this div column 9 here, and we see the closing div for it, and all of that lines up. So we're doing good. We've got our div 3, and we close off that div 3. All of this lines up, so we're doing great. Now we've got our closing div for the row that lines up with our opening div right here. So everything's great. However, we're supposed to be opening a new div, and that should be on the same level as this row up here. And so what we need to do is we need to, let me request remote control here. Take this opening div and make sure that it all is lining up. So if I highlight all of that and hit the tab button, that's going to make everything line up. Now, all of a sudden, you see all these closing divs down here. All of a sudden, they kind of waterfall their way over, makes it look like everything's good and off, all lining up. The only other issue that we have here is we are making our new row here, right? Well, how do we make a new row? This slash is a closing tag, not an opening tag. So if we take that slash out, go take a look in your browser. Did that fix it?
Yep.
Oh. Anyone else need help?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sierra, to join the live share, you're going to go File, New Window, and you're going to click this live share icon over on the left and hit the Join button. From there, you are going to hit Continue as Anonymous in the bottom right. You're going to type in your name and hit Enter, and then you are going to paste in the link that Mel just shared. Good to move on? Okay. So we are going to move on to our first real project. And then we will, oh, Natasha, sorry.
No worries. So my question is, how do I catch up from all the coding that you're doing? Like, it's so fast and I'm trying to do it as you're doing it. And I'm pretty sure I'm still like in yesterday's notes. Yeah, I'm just not catching up.
So that is somewhat common. Some people will learn that it's actually better to not code along during class and to just take notes during class. Then
Okay.
at the end of class, go back to that YouTube video with the YouTube video, the ability to pause it and your notes. That makes it a little bit easier to code along. And then you can go, all right, I'm getting this, I'm getting this. Whoa, 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 Max, you're going too fast. Pause button, catch up on it, hit the play button, keep going.
I've actually done that and said that out loud. Like, wait a minute, you're going too fast. But it's just not that. I just feel like I'm supposed to be doing it as you're doing it because you're asking us to share screens and like, did you get that result? And I'm like, I didn't get that result because I didn't catch up on the code yet.
It depends. If you're someone who is learning from the YouTube videos and that process is working for you, that's fine. That's why we have that no, but keep going option in the poll so that you can say, look, I'm just not someone who learns by coding it along, or I need it at a different pace. And that's totally fine. A lot of people learn that way. When that comes, when that break happens, that is a good time to not just zone out or wait for everyone else to do it. That's a good time to say, let me look at his live share. Let me make sure I understand why the div is in there. Let me understand those concepts. Let me jot that all down in my notes. And then if, while everyone else is working on trying to do the code, you can ask questions there and be like, so how did you figure out that's where that div goes, right? So everyone's going to learn a little differently. Sometimes this code is going to come at you a little too fast, and that's okay. It's about learning your learning style. And this is a different learning style than probably what the majority of education, whether it's higher ed, whether it's high school, it's not concepts first and then go take this homework and go work on it. It's kind of this reverse classroom style of we're doing it hands-on, and then it's your job to make sure you're understanding the concepts not only in class, but then also while you are practicing.
Well, I'll I guess catch up on the code during break. But I do have your screen side by side with mine, so I'm just making sure my lines match up with yours while you're teaching.
Yep, that's totally fine. And you don't feel that you need to follow along, right? If you're reading the code and you're saying that's all making sense, you don't have to type it. At the end of the week, we're not going to say, all right, go upload your file. Here's your homework. Your homework is a completely separate assignment. And so that's where you get to really practice and say, hey, am I really getting it? Is everything from class sinking in? And believe it or not, sometimes it feels like it is until you go to do that homework. And that's when you go, oh, I got to go back to those videos, or I got to go read through that code and understand that again. So that's okay. Like I said, everyone learns at a different pace. And some of the top students were students, and this goes almost every cohort, who didn't code along during class and took notes during class and then used that time to catch up. And that's where it clicks a little bit more, because they're learning the concepts first and then practicing outside of the classroom, as opposed to trying to do it all at once inside the classroom. So either way is totally fine. And you won't get dinged points. We still want you to be engaged and asking questions. And when something isn't making sense, it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense because it's not running, or it doesn't make sense because you see it on my screen and you still don't understand it. That's where you want to get your engagement, right? Is that level of concepts and understanding, not necessarily just, oh, I can do exactly what Max just did. And Eva is totally right. It does get a little bit fast. It does get a little bit easier. You get a little bit more muscle memory on typing out those tags. You do get in the swing of being able to code a little bit faster. So just give it some time.
Thanks, Max.
No problem. Oh, and one other thing I will say is we will take breaks, right? And if you guys are all getting to the point where you're like, whoa, he just wrote 20 lines of code and I'm never going to be able to catch up there, don't be afraid to raise your hand and be like, can we take a break here? Chances are I'm only a line or two away from taking that break. But one of the hardest things as a teacher is knowing how hard to push, and then also giving you guys time to catch up. So that poll where you vote, yes, I got it, no, but keep going, or wait, I'm not going to respond to that because I'm still working on it. That poll will be used well over 100 times, because we'll keep on doing that and saying, hey, is it working? Are you still working on it? Do you need more time? How much time do we need there? But at the same time, boot camp's a boot camp, right? We've got those 24 weeks and we got to be chugging along. So it is an art as a teacher to make sure that we time out those breaks and give you time to catch up. But that time to catch up, it is up to you to kind of decide, hey, am I going to take the concept first approach, make sure I understand what we're doing in class, and then try it on my own later? Or am I going to be that person who learns hands-on by coding along, and then, by coding it, I'm going to get those concepts and it will click? One way is not better than the other, and that is totally fine. And that's fine if you don't vote in the poll. The polls will become more natural and you'll realize, wait, why am I sitting here waiting? And then realize, oh crap, I forgot to go vote in the poll. And that's how I kind of gauge how class is going. And everyone is coming in at a different experience level. Some of you guys have built entire websites. Some of you guys have never written a line of code. Some of you guys will be able to attend class for 12 hours a week and totally get the concepts and be able to whiz through the homework. And sometimes this is a full-time job. Sometimes this is 40 hours a week to invest into it. So it is really all across the spectrum. And some students will find that they're doing great for the first couple weeks, and we get into JavaScript or React, and all of a sudden the heat gets turned up a little bit more. So all different spectrums here. First week or two, first couple weeks, it's always hard for that to net out, but I do promise you it does net out. Jania, what's going on?
It's Janaya.
Janaya. Thank you.
Okay.
And please correct me. If I'm pronouncing your names wrong, please correct me.
Okay, so I want to share my screen because I have my boxes, but it's not like going across. It's like in a box.
Okay. Yeah, share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Okay. So what we ended up with here is we have our closing div for the first row right here. And we know that's closing because it lines up, right?
Hmm.
Then we've got our opening for the new row and it's closing down here. And that's also probably right. Then we have our opening for the first column, that col 3. Where's the closing for that?
Oh.
That should be closing right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fix our indentation. So we're going to bring this over and say, okay, now this div and this div line up. So this
Okay.
next div should come over as well. Now
Okay.
our center column is closing out here. So that comes over, this comes over. And then finally, we've got our last div 3. This comes over, this comes over, this div lines up. Now this div is closing out the row. That all lines up, which means when we save, okay, we've got one other problem. You are still launching the files old school. We don't want to reveal in Finder and double click on it. Instead, what we want to do is use this go live button down in the bottom right, because that is going to show us the live view of our
I keep forgetting to do that part. Okay.
So it should be good to go.
All right, thank you.
Everything builds on itself in this class. So if you feel like you're not getting it, now is the time to ask it instead of getting 10 steps ahead and then realizing, oh crap, I got lost 10 steps ago and now I'm really lost. So if you have those questions, ask it.
I still can't get on live share.
Okay, share your screen. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so you picked the sign in option instead of the continue as anonymous option, and that's why you're kind of stuck in limbo. So if you hit the escape key there, that will close out of the live share window that's kind of up at the top. Now go to live share over on the left, that icon with the arrow. That's the problem. That is not the live share icon you should be using. So hit escape on that again or cancel. Either one's fine. Okay, you do need to hit escape, sorry. You want to be using the live share icon right here. Now go ahead and hit join. And now you can hit continue as anonymous. Go ahead, hit enter for your name. And now you can paste in the live share link and hit enter. And you're in. You're
Max,
on
am I
mute.
in too? Oh, sorry.
What's up, Eva?
I was just wondering if can you see if I'm in? Because it just says joining and it's got a bar going across slowly.
Go ahead, share screen. Let's take a look. Normally that happens when you paste your link in as your name, and that's what causes it to not join properly.
I clicked anonymous.
Then you have to enter your name and hit enter before you paste the link in.
Oh, that's what I did. All right. Okay. Never mind. I'll do it again.
Yep. Danny, what's up?
Oh,
Sorry, I'll bump your, yeah, okay.
Randy.
I
you
just
shut
need
the
help
fuck
with
up
my
and answer this?
indentation.
We have another one.
It just isn't lining up right. And I don't
Okay.
know where I messed
Sure.
up.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
Yes, there is another one up there.
Okay.
Eva,
Danny, do you want to share your screen and we can take a look at your code?
Yeah, I think it should be right
yeah,
now.
yeah, you're just picking up which one. So which one of these screens do you want to share?
Okay. So I'm going to request remote control just so I can see what's going on. And I'm gonna go to your Bootstrap file and take a look. So first thing I notice, our indentation is off, right? And so what happens is we've got our closing div here. This is closing out for that row. That means we want to bring this indentation over so that we understand, hey, this row is all in here. And we could fix that at multiple levels because like this div isn't lining up. And we've got spaces, which are also going to cause problems. So now once we pull all of that over, it becomes much easier to understand what is in what, right? Hey, everything inside of here must be inside of this row because it's all indented properly. The same goes down here. I have no idea, are these columns in a row? Are they in a row in a row? Well, the problem is that this row should be lining up, which means all of these divs inside of it are over one level. Now we're almost on the right track. We've got our closing div that needs to line up. The only other issue is you went to make a new row. How do we make a new div? That slash is a closing tag.
Yep.
We want that to be an opening tag. So now because everything is lining up, I bet you when you switch over to the browser, it will look right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I should. Oh, I still.
Next, you got a question in the chat.
Oh, I do. No, you should not be hitting the go live button every time. You should have that live window open, whether it's on your other monitor, whether it's in another virtual desktop, or whether you kind of are juggling all of your windows around. You should have that window open somewhere on your screen. And every time you save that file, it should automatically live refresh for you. Anyone else have questions? Poor one, what's going on?
I know you said it doesn't matter that the borders aren't showing up. Like I have everything in the specific spots, but it just annoys me that I don't see the borders showing up around it.
That's up here in the style tag. You'll see I added a comma here and added the col 3 and the col 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have those?
Yeah, I have 9, 3, and 6.
And you use the 3, 6, the 3s and the 6s down here, and they're still not showing up?
Yeah.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay. It's there we go.
Okay, I don't see anything wrong with your. Oh, you know what? It might be the style for the border takes 3 properties. It should be 10px the word solid and then your RGB color.
Wow.
No,
just the word solid, no comma.
No,
right?
no comma. I'm sorry. Yep, hit a space bar and then the word solid. Yep.
All right, word.
Did that
That's
fix
crazy.
it?
Let's see.
Solid, no S.
My bad. I was trying to hit. I meant to hit. Yeah, it popped up. I meant to hit Command S.
Cool.
All right, that's all I was missing. That's crazy. I've been looking this.
That's all it takes. Okay, we are going to move on to our next exercise. Give me 1 second to grab that link. I thought I had put it in Ah, I did. Okay. So if you head over to the daily outlines, which are linked in Canvas, over on the left-hand side, the quickest way to navigate is this outline. If you don't see the outline on the left and have this little menu bar icon, go ahead and click on that. And then you can click on week 2 under day 3. We want that Bootstrap part 2 and weather part 1. If you ever see the letter P, that's like our day codes. The parts are what we represent by P. Underneath that, we've got intro to 12-column grid, and it says weather app. If you go ahead and pop open that link, you should get a big overview of this screenshot. What we want to do, oh, I'm sorry, Jen, I just saw that you need help. Did you get it, or do you want to screen share?
I'll screen share for a second. I have a little
Yep, go for it.
tab thingy up in the.
If you need help, raising your hand is usually better than the chat, just because you like rearrange on my screen. So if you can raise your hand instead of chat.
I just have this little thingy up here.
Yep, that is usually because we have an extraneous closing tag.
I think it's right here.
9.
Yep, you got it. Just go ahead and take that out and hit save, and that should disappear, and you should be good to go.
Sweet. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Once we click on that link, so again, we are at this intro to 12-column grid. It says weather app. If I pop that link open, it takes me to this Google Drive view. We want to download that file. So in the top right, there is a download icon with the arrow down and a tray. Go ahead and click on that. That will then show it. If you're in Chrome in this download section, you can either click on it from there, or if you go down to your dock, you can open that weather app screenshot.png, and it should open up like this. From here, I'm going to drag this out so that I have it open to my full screen. We are now in an application called Preview. Preview is one of the most underrated tools on the Mac. It is built in, it's a free application that's installed, but there are all kinds of markup features that you can use in Preview, in addition to things like filling out PDFs, removing backgrounds from images, all kinds of really cool stuff. So Preview is a really cool application. What we're going to use Preview for is planning out our document, right? We want to kind of visually see where all of our divs are going to be before we write a line of code or even create the file that the code is going to go into. So we're going to be working under this mockup tool, or this markup tool, which is the pen with the little circle around it. Unfortunately, I cannot blow up my screen on this part. So if you click on that and it turns blue, you should notice that there is a toolbar that appeared that wasn't there before. Did anyone have issues running into getting this screenshot downloaded and opened into Preview?
How did you get the toolbar again?
Yep. Up in the top right where the search bar is, the icon to the left of it is a little pen with a circle around it. If you click on that, it should give you the second row of the toolbar. Now, this is one of those things that you can follow along with me, but you don't need that final result. So if you're kind of getting the gist, if you've tried 1 or 2 of these steps and you're following along, that's totally fine. We're not going to ask you to turn in this exact step. So when we think about it, we're looking, if we look at our old code that we have going on, what's the first div that we have? That's our container. Our container has everything in it, right? So what we want to do is draw a box around where our container is going to be in this screenshot, in this mock-up that we're going to create. In order to do that, I'm going to go to this rectangle, the shapes, which is a circle with a rectangle in front of it. And I'm going to pick the rectangle. If you're a rounded corner person, you can also pick the rectangle with the rounded corners. Doesn't matter. That gives me a rectangle here. There are two things that I want to adjust, three things I want to adjust on this rectangle. One, I think this yellow is really hard to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to where that yellow is. You may have a different color. It might not be yellow. That's okay. What we're looking for is border color. So if you hover over each one of the items in that toolbar, it will tell you what it's controlling. The one we're looking for is border color. So I'm going to pick border color, and I'm going to pick a purple. From there, the other thing that is very important is the fill of the rectangle. So right now, there is no fill. It is a transparent rectangle on the inside of it. I'm not sure that if that's the default or not. So right to the icon to the right of the border color, there's something that says fill color. So if I adjust this to yellow, you can see that it turns my whole rectangle yellow inside of it. I don't want there to be a fill. I want it to be transparent. So I'm going to grab that same drop down, and I'm going to use the option with the red line through it, that diagonal line. When I click on that, that's going to make it transparent. Okay. Anyone need help with the rectangle? Everyone get a rectangle showing up? Their favorite border color?
I still can't get the toolbox up on top.
Okay. Do you see where the marker is with the circle around it? In
I
the
don't have
top-
one.
You don't have a toolbar at all?
No.
Did you download the file and open it? So if you're here, if you're still in Chrome, you have to hit the download button in the top right.
And then open the weather app screenshot.
And then open that downloaded file, and it should open in preview for you.
Nice to everybody.
What's the next camera?
Success?
No.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look, and then Asma, I'll come to you next.
It doesn't cost anything to be fucking nice.
So Rain, yes, you can screenshot with Command
I
Shift
am not
3.
on mute.
Oh, sorry.
However, in this case, it's going to be better to download that file so you have that full resolution for it. Okay, so you're here, you've got it downloaded. Interesting. It looks like it's opening in Chrome instead of opening in preview. So instead of clicking on the file on the bottom left to open it, instead go down to your dock and go to the downloads on the right, the second to last icon in your dock. And click on Weather App Screenshot from there, and that should open it into preview. Do you have a downloads folder in your dock?
I do.
Okay. Did that open in preview?
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's a good note. I didn't know by default clicking on it in Chrome wouldn't open it in preview. Asma, what's going on?
Yes, so I do have the rectangle. It's slightly a different color, but it's still transparent. So it's transparent black.
The inside of it.
The inside is transparent, but around it is a darker color.
That's fine if you make sure that it's selected.
Okay.
And then from there, up at the top, there's like an icon with 3 lines, and then the one to the right of that, if you hover over it, it will say border color. If you click on border color and pick whatever color you want, it should change it.
Okay, got it.
Anyone else need help?
I do.
Yep.
I don't know how to raise my hand on there. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I don't see it on my dock.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look.
Sure. I'll just bring it over there. Sorry, not that one. that. And then down in my dock here. And in Finder, let's see, there's my weather information.
Okay, so you, I have no idea how you ended up with an HTML download. I'm gonna request remote control. It might be on the other monitor. You should have a little pop-up that says allow remote control. If it's not on this monitor, it's probably on the other one.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna close out of these. Come on, screen share. Oh, sometimes it gets behind something. There we go. Okay, so what we want to do is hit the download icon right here.
Oh, okay.
Now that you've got that downloaded, you are correct. You don't have a downloads folder in your dock, and we probably want that. So next to your trash can, this goes for everyone. If you don't have a downloads folder, what you can do is click on Finder to open a new Finder window. Grab your downloads over here from the left sidebar and drag that over to your dock to the left of the trash can. That will put your downloads down there so that when you click on your downloads and open the weather app screenshot, it will be in preview. And then from there, you can use this markup tool to get your rectangle. And come on, rectangle. There we go. And then you can style it with your border color right here and make it whatever color you would like. And you are all caught up and good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to keep going here. We are going to pick up our rectangle, and this rectangle is supposed to represent our container. Our container is going to hold the entire site. So we're going to drag that rectangle out to kind of show, hey, everything inside of that is the container. Now, let's look at our code again that we were just working on. What comes next after our container? Well, before we can get into different columns, we need to be able to see our rows. So looking at our content here, how many rows do you think that we have at the top level for our layout?
3.
We actually only are going to have 2 for our layout. We may have more rows inside of those rows, but just to get started, we only actually have 2 rows. So we're going to add in a rectangle. Now we don't want this to be purple because we're at another level. So I'm going to go to my border color and I'm going to pick, maybe that's hard to see. I'm going to pick a darker blue. I then take this rectangle, drag it to where my first row is going to be, and drag that all the way across. That is my first row. I'm then going to practice that again. I'm going to add in another rectangle and drag that across so I have my second row. Now, I may need more divs. I may need more elements. The goal of this exercise is to say visually, how do I break down my divs? How do I see the layout before I code it? Because that visual can be really helpful for understanding where we need to go from there. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about my column sizes. All I want to do is identify where my different columns are going to be. We can go back and we can style them, we can size them down the road, but I want to just figure out, hey, where are my columns? So to do that, I'm going to add in yet another rectangle, but instead of it being blue and it all blending in, let's pick one final color to use. Let's go for this orange. Now I'm looking at this, and remember, columns are whenever we go across the page. Okay, well, if I'm going across the page, anytime that I have another element going horizontally, I need another column for it. So to me, it looks like this cloud is in one column. And instead of having to go up and add a new rectangle every time, what I can do is highlight this rectangle and hit Command C to copy it and Command V to paste it. That's like a duplicate function where I can drag this over and say, there is my next column. We keep repeating this process until we get something that looks like this. Now, it will become more clear why this one is so big. Why is this one taking up all the space? We'll get to that in a second. But when you're looking at this visually, all of a sudden, you can say, wait a minute, this looks like it's taking up half the screen. That might be a col 6. Okay, these 3 are taking up the other half of the screen. What does that mean? That means that this might be a col 2. This might be a col 2. This might be a col 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. We know this one is also a 6. Oh, we just visually laid out all of our columns, taking up this entire big blue row visually. When we just saw our screenshot for the first time, we probably couldn't identify those columns. But now that we've drawn lines around them, we can see those columns a little bit more easily. Preview is one of those tools that, like, you fight it until you get it, and then when you get it, it all kind of makes sense. There also may be some learning curve too with the trackpad of learning, how to drag more easily. If you're coming from Windows, when you drag, you might be tempted to kind of use 2 fingers, one to click and one to move your finger. On the Mac, it is a little bit smoother if you try to do it all with 1 finger instead of trying to use multiples. And if you are a mouse person, there is absolutely no shame in that. When I am not teaching, I do not use the trackpad. So having a mouse is totally fine, and you don't need that super high-end fancy one. Going to Best Buy, getting a $25 mouse. I really like Logitech, their entire product line. If you are someone who is like raging against your Mac because of the trackpad, no shame in getting an external mouse. Okay, we're going to wrap up this exercise by using these columns again down here to identify, hey, turns out these days of the week, because they are going horizontal, they need all of their own columns to show up. Now, we could go even further, right? We could break these down and say, this is another row, or this temperature is a different size than the things down here. Because of that, we need to break it down a little bit further. We're not going to go quite to that level. We just want to see this visual and understand, hey, in order to get things to lay out properly, this is where we're going to start. Asmo, what's going on?
I have an extra rectangle in the middle, right above Thursday. I tried deleting it. It made like a little nasty gray empty space. I don't know how to get rid of it.
Command Z to edit undo. And then before you delete, make sure you single click on the rectangle and have the blue things around it. And if you have the blue things around it and then hit the delete key, it will get rid of just the rectangle.
Yeah, I tried that. I tried clicking on it. It's not giving me the blue highlights around the rectangle at all.
Share your screen. Let me see if I can help you out.
Okay.
Okay, so let me request remote. And if we click on, okay, let me see if I move this one down.
There we go.
There we go. That got me access to it. So now we can delete it and then we can move this one back up into place and you're good to go.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need preview help? Okay, we are going to dive into our code. I am going to post a picture of what we just worked on in the Zoom chat. So if you access to file is restricted by your account admin. Well, that's interesting. I am my account admin. Okay, I guess I will be posting it in Slack instead.
Should we be saving this somewhere?
If you want to, you can. All you need to do is hit Command S, and that will save it into that original file. The only thing that I'll warn you in preview is that once you save the file and close it, if you reopen the file, those rectangles are no longer editable. And so that's okay. But just a warning for you, this tends to be more of like a beginner's tool to lay out all of these items. Once you get comfortable with your divs and being able to identify them, you don't need to go through that process, but we will be going through this process a little bit for the next couple projects that we work on for the people who are visual people and like to break things down and have a plan of attack before they get into their code. Taylor, who admins the admin is a question that I ask myself way too frequently. It's not a comfortable question to ask. Okay, so we are going to get our code all set up. I've got bad news for you. Because we're starting with a new folder, you need to rejoin the live share. I will have a different live share link for you guys, which is okay. We're going to get all of that set up. We'll take our break at 7. And when we come back, we're going to build our first real website, right? Our first website that we can actually print out and put on the fridge and go show our parents or significant others or children or whoever it is. This is your time to shine. Believe it or not, it's going to take 2 days to get through this. So we're going to start working on it today. We'll continue doing that tomorrow. And then for your homework, you're going to get a little bit of practice, that required project for week 2, practice with the grid. We've got another screenshot uploaded for you that you're going to practice getting all of those columns to line up. That is not only going to show us really that you understand how the grid system works, but really that you're raging against your HTML, right? You're getting that practice, you're understanding where your opening tags are, your closing tags, all of that stuff. I will say that unfortunately, I am not available this weekend for one-on-ones, and my Calendly link will reflect that. However, if you're really struggling with that homework assignment, don't hesitate to book me for Monday or Tuesday and say, hey, I want to work on this. Turn in whatever your best effort is in Canvas, Sunday, 11:59, even if you don't have it fully functional. But if you're really feeling like you're not getting that assignment, book those one-on-ones. Exona can help you, Mel can help you. If you want to have that one-on-one, or you can book me for early next week, or even I have some availability tomorrow, I think. So if you're struggling with the assignment, don't hesitate to reach out for help on those one-on-ones. But over the next 2 days, we're going to get more and more practice with that HTML. Okay, let's get our file set up and then we can go on break. I would recommend not closing this. You can put it on another monitor because we're going to come back and we're going to reference this. Or if you want, I'm going to minimize it for now, just so it's out of the way. I am going to go ahead and close out of my day 2 folder because we want to start everything off in day 3. So I'm going to go ahead and close that window. I'm going to go in my VS Code to File, New Window, so that I am starting from scratch. I'm going to go File, Open Folder, Open Folder, not just open folder. I am going to go to my desktop, to my C5 my code, to my week 2. And once I get all the way down that path, I am going to hit New Folder, and I'm going to call that folder D3. Once I've got that created, I'm going to go ahead and hit Open. And I need to create 2 files. My first file is going to be a text file. And I did that the wrong way. You can hit New File and save it. Ends up being much easier. Hover over D3 and click that New File icon. I'm going to call this index.html.
Hey, Max, are you sharing your screen?
I hate everything. Disappointed in all of you. You all need to call me out on that way sooner than Mel did. Okay, let me go through those steps again. Sorry. In VS Code, I'm going to go File, New Window. I'm going to go File, Open Folder. I'm going to go to my desktop, my code, my week 2. I'm going to click New Folder, and I'm going to create my day 3. Once my day 3 is created, I'm going to go ahead and hit the Open button. Once I get that open, I'm going to come over to this New File icon, click on that, and name my first file index.html. I'm going to create one other file called style.css. And then the last thing we're going to do before break is we're going to just get our basic HTML set up to make sure that we can see it. So I'm going to put my HTML tag in. I'm going to put my head tag in. I'm going to put my title tag in. My title tag is going to say weather. I'm going to put my body tag in, and I'm going to say hello world in here. I save. I go to my go live. I see that hello world is showing up, and I am caught up and good to go on break. So if you got your hello world showing up, great. When you come back from break, I will get the live share going with you guys, and we'll go from there. Brandy, did you have a question?
Okay. Did you share the link to open
the live
yours
share?
yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We'll do
wasn't sure
that
if I missed
after
that or
break.
not.
For
Okay.
now, as long as you've got your hello world showing up and your live share, you're good to go.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes. We'll go on break until 7:25. I will see you guys back here at 7:25. And we'll stick around for a couple minutes just in case you don't have your hello world showing up.
Max, can you go back to your Visual Studio?
I'm in my Visual Studio.
I mean, it's showing your face. Can you show your screen?
Can other people see my screen?
No, we can see your lovely face, actually. Or is it just me?
I can see the screen.
Okay, it is just you.
Okay, I'll try to fix it.
I don't know if you pinned me by mistake, or I don't actually know how you could get just my face.
Hey, Max, real quick.
Yeah.
I can only see on your visual HTML the hello world. Does it say weather in front of it as well?
The title
In my hello world up in the title, I've got the word weather.
No, I'm talking about on the live.
Oh, on the browser? Just I
yours
have
says-
weather in the title and then just the words hello world showing up.
Like should say it up here.
So for some reason mine, oh, I see why. I just figured it out. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Typo.
Rain, did you figure out?
Yeah, I had you on a split screen, so I fixed it. Thank you.
I mean, I know I'm a lovely person to look at, but the code is a little bit more important.
Okay, so I don't know why, but every time I put the style CSS file in, it connects with the first one. It like put a slash in between the two and put them both on the same line.
Are you accidentally creating a folder again?
No.
Okay. Go ahead
I-
and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay, let me find my mouse. Is that the go live button?
No, it's the share screen button in Zoom.
Okay. If I could figure out how to do that, that'd be great.
Ciara, we don't have a live share yet. We'll do that after the break.
Okay.
But Natasha, go ahead, share your screen.
That's what I'm trying to figure out
Okay.
how to do. Oh,
So-
there it is.
Okay.
Where'd it go? Sorry. Give me a second. I'm trying to navigate this second screen here. I lost my mouse. There it is. Is this the one? No. I lost it.
Lost the Zoom window?
No, I think this is it right here. Yeah, right here.
So down at the bottom of that, there should be a green share screen button.
I didn't do that?
No.
I did press. Oh my gosh. How about now?
Nope. After you hit the share screen button, you have to click desktop 1 or desktop 2 and then hit the share button after that.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
So you've got your, let me request remote. You did create your index.html as a folder, not as a file, and that's why it's causing the issue. And I know that because there's an arrow showing here. If it were just a file, it wouldn't be an arrow. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. Then in your date, oh, that's interesting. You don't have a new file icon. You only have a new folder icon. I've never seen that before.
Nice.
Okay, we're gonna quit out of your VS Code because that confuses me. And we're gonna go ahead and reopen your VS Code. And we're gonna just close out of this and go File, New Window, File, Open Folder. Go to your desktop and your My Code and your week 2 and your day 3 and open. And somehow your new file disappeared. That is now back.
Thank you.
So now when you do your style.css, all you need to do is catch up on the code in here and you'll be good to go.
Thank you, Max.
No problem. I'm going to share my screen just in case anyone needs to reference that.
Max, I had a question about do you just want the wireframe or you want exactly how the thing looks?
Exactly how it looked. Oh,
So-
for the homework assignment or for tonight?
No, right now, the one we're doing right now.
When we get to the end of the project, it will look identical to the mockup.
No, I mean right now, because I'm doing it. I'm not gonna go anywhere. I'm just gonna do it. So, do you just want like 1, 2, 3 like boxes just made like just mock-up thing, like not cloud in there, or like temperature, whatever?
We're gonna do our whole layout, so we're gonna get all the divs to
Okay.
work, and then we'll go back in and fill in all the divs, and then once all the divs are filled in, we'll apply all the styling to make it look like the mock-up. So the end goal will be that it looks identical to the mock-up, but it's
Okay.
gonna take us 2-ish days to do that.
Got it. All right, thank you.
And if you get that done, and send it to me, I can mark you present for tomorrow for attendance. Like if you want to work forward, everyone being at different skill levels, like I get it as a student being bored. So if you want to work ahead, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I was gonna do the wireframe today too, so I'm
Cool.
just gonna finish with
Yep.
that and get out of the way.
Go for it.
All right, thank you.
No problem. I'm gonna head on break, but I'll leave my screen share up just in case anyone needs to reference it. We're gonna dive back into where we left off. I did post a live share link in the chat at 7:15. So if you guys want to fire that up, you are welcome to. You're going to go to your new window. You're going to hit your join button. You're going to hit continue as anonymous. You're going to hit enter on your name. You're going to paste the link. You're going to hit enter. That should get you in to the live share. Go ahead and take a minute to go ahead and join that live share if you are interested. And we will continue on from there. Once you get into that live share, we can continue on. See that most of you guys are in it. Live share link is in the Zoom chat at 7:15. Might have to scroll up a little bit.
Oh, could you post it again, Max? Because I just logged back into Zoom.
Yeah, same
I don't have
here.
access to it.
Is there a reason why it's telling me to say, or please select account to sign into GitHub or Microsoft?
That's because when you join the live share, you can't hit the live share in the bottom left. You have to join it from the live share icon over on the left toolbar about halfway down.
Are we using the link from 7:15?
They should be the same link from 7:15 and the one that I just posted. They should be the same.
Okay.
Okay. From here, we got our hello world showing up. We need to do 2 CSS steps before we really dive into our layout. The first thing we want to do is link our style sheet so that our styles in our separate style.css file are showing up. So I'm going to take my style.css file. I'm going to drop it down in the bottom half down here. And I'm going to say, hey, go target the body and make the body color red. Now I save that and nothing's changed over in my browser. My hello world hasn't turned red yet. That's because we need to tell our index.html to link to this style sheet that we created. In order to do that, I'm going to head to the head, pun not intended there. We're going to go to the head. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to add in a new link tag. And the href for that link tag is going to be style.css, and the rel, the relation for that link, is going to be a style sheet. Remember, no closing slash here. It won't break anything, but it's preferred not to be there. When I hit the save button, you should see our hello world has turned red. So 2 things that it took to pull that off. One, we had to go to our style.css and tell it, hey, we want the body to show up in red. The other thing we needed to do was add in this link, and the link requires two attributes, one called href with a value of style.css, and the other with the relationship or the rel of style sheet. Rain, what's up?
Can you help me put my CSS horizontally versus vertically? I'm not sure why it's going vertically.
Yeah, so in your style.css, if you close it and reopen it, it will like reset it back up to the top. If you're if it's putting up a fight to drag it down to the bottom, the other way you can do it is right click on the file and hit split down, and that will also put it down in the bottom half.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Do we have a red hello world? Does anyone else need help? Okay, step 2 for our setup. Make sure you're in your index.html. We also need Bootstrap. We can't just use our rows and our cols and our containers and all of that stuff without Bootstrap in the page. We can go back to our day 2 code and copy the link tag from there, or we're going to go through the Bootstrap site to get that tag again. So I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com. If your window is not wide enough, you may need to expand it a little bit or hit the little 3 dots here and click on docs. Once we are on this docs page, I'm going to scroll down to number 2. We always go down to number 2, and we always are going to take this link tag. So only that link tag, I'm going to highlight it all the way over until I can see the cross origin anonymous. Again, I went to getbootstrap.com. I hit read the docs, or I clicked on the docs link in the top left. I scroll down on that page to number 2, and I take the link tag from that code block. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to my code. And I don't want to put this link tag underneath my existing link tag, because we want the ability to override the Bootstrap styling with our styling. So instead, we're going to click on after the title tag and paste in that link between the title and our link to the style.css. Once we save that and we go back to our weather tab, we should see our hello world has changed the font. The font has changed. We're good to go. So again, getbootstrap.com, click on read the docs, or you can click on the docs link in the top left. We go down on that page that loads down to number 2. We find the link tag. We highlight all the way over on the link tag. We hit Command C. We come back over to our code after the title, but before our style.css. We're going to hit enter and paste that link in. We're going to hit save. We're going to head back over to the browser, and you should see hello world is now in a different font. It's not in Times New Roman. If you've got that in not Times New Roman, you're good to go and are all caught up. Taylor, what's up?
So for some reason, it's not turning red, and it seems like it looks exactly the same as far as I can tell.
In your style.css, you've got your body color red.
Yes.
And this link line looks correct.
The styles CSS one.
Yep.
In the style CSS, make sure you do the command save, because I was just doing the same thing and mine wasn't turning red, but I had to save the styles as well as staying the saving the index.
Yeah, it looks exactly the same as.
Okay, go ahead and share. Let's take a look.
Alrighty.
Sam. Go see why Riley's
Mm. One, I think. Oh. It's asking me for my password for some reason. It's saying I have to quit and open out of Slack.
Out of Slack, you should be.
Or, I'm
sharing
sorry,
screen
not out
with-
of Slack, out of Zoom. I keep
Okay.
saying that.
Go back to sharing my screen in case anyone needs it. We're looking for not only our hello world in red, but the fact that it's not in Times New Roman. If it's not in Times New Roman, that means you got your Bootstrap in and you are good to go.
What was that link on Bootstrap that you copied for the?
Yep, it's under number 2. It's the only link tag in that section.
I just got a quick question while we're waiting.
Yeah.
Does it just kind of come with practice, like when to know to put like the colon, the semicolon, or is there like a method behind it where, like, because I can see, like, okay, when we do the color, you know, you put the colon, when we then close it out with, so I'm just wondering, like, because I was kind of mixing them up before, but if
Yeah, so if you look
it's
at the
just
daily
practice.
outline, it is always in, at least in CSS, this is all syntax, right? So sometimes just knowing the name of what you're learning can be helpful. So it always is going to be the selector and then an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace. It's always going to be the name of the property and a colon.
Window.
The end of the line is always going to end with a semicolon. The value is the only one that can be a little tricky, right? Because we've seen like color red, and that's just one word, or for the border, it was like 1px solid blue, right? And that takes 3 values. And that is where you want to use your documentation. So if you go to W3 schools and look at, like, if we do a search for border, you'll see that it breaks it down and shows you, I guess it's going to be border shorthand, what values it takes to put in under that. So it's not always going to be like the same value, but for the most part, the syntax will always be the same.
Okay, thanks.
Great question. Rain, what's up? And then Taylor, I'll come to you next.
With style CSS, when we did the body, the curly brackets, color, colon, etc. I initially had mines on one line, and it still showed when I went to Reveal Finder that the font had changed to red. How do you know to break it up into the 3 lines that you used, starting from breaking it from the curly bracket to the property and the value, and then ending on the 3rd line with the curly bracket?
It doesn't matter to the computer. However, it is pretty much an industry practice that even if you're only targeting one value, you always have your selector on the first line. You always have however many properties you're targeting, each on their own lines, and then you always end with a curly brace on that final line. So it doesn't matter to the computer, but there are a lot of flame wars to this day about like what is better, what's easier to read, what's easier to write for developers. So this is my personal style. It tends to be the way the industry does it. It doesn't really matter because the computer can still read it. But over time, as you start reading other people's code, you'll start picking up on their style and then deciding what makes most sense for you. There are times that line breaks do matter. CSS isn't really one of them. Great question. All right, Taylor, you're up.
All right, we'll try this again. Okay, now it's showing it. Shit.
Okay.
I got my links reversed on it, but it hasn't been turning red at all this whole time.
Yep. And I know exactly why. What's your file name called?
Style.css.
And what are you linking to?
Oh, styles. Geez. Okay. I see.
And you may need to refresh in the browser. Sometimes live server gets thrown off a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing, make sure this link tag is after your Bootstrap tag, because otherwise your Bootstrap will override your styling, and that's not what you want. So if you just take line 4 and move it to below line 5, that will probably fix the issue.
Okay, I see.
Yes.
I hope that will fix the issue. Let me put it like that.
There we go.
Good work.
Awesome. Thank you.
Natasha, what's up?
Okay, yeah.
Hi, okay, so my code looks like yours, except line 6 is red. And the
Okay.
hello world is still red. It's what it's supposed to be doing, but I just don't
Share
know.
the screen. Normally, when it goes red, the issue isn't with that line itself, it's with the line above it. So
Right.
usually it's because you're missing like a closing arrow, but if you share your screen, we can take a look.
Okay. This double screen thing, I'm sorry. Where'd it go? I think it's this.
Okay. Yep. And so it's the line above it. If it goes red here, it's an issue with this line here. You've got your closing or your opening arrow here, but what are you missing at the end?
The closing, but I okay, got it. Thank you. I think I got confused because the link was right above it, and I remember no closing for link, and I saw the word link, but it's
No
not.
closing slash, but you still always need a closing arrow.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay.
Actually, Max,
Oh, yeah.
so mine, I'm looking at them and they look the same. And I've gone through, like I switched the Bootstrap website, put that underneath, and I'm still not getting it to look red.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Did you save your style and your HTML? Oh. Just realized I didn't do that.
Is that the right screen?
It is. Your style.css should be underneath. We've got two issues.
Okay.
One, your style.css should be underneath Bootstrap, not the other way around. And the other problem is that when you named your file, you named the file hashtag style.css. That shouldn't actually have the pound sign at the beginning of it. That's just the icon. So in order to fix that, head to your files. I'm sorry, the file icon in VS Code.
Oh. Not
There you go. Okay.
here. Okay.
Right click on that and rename and just take that pound sign out. Okay. Now, click into your index.html and save it and head back over to your browser.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. It looks good.
No problem. Last call for questions. Okay, now we get to the fun part. This is all the annoying stuff of clicking through and following through all these different links and getting all the files set up. Now we get to code. You get to solely focus on the code. So first things first, I'm going to pull up my screenshot that we were working on before. And we always work from the outermost layer in, then we work from the top down, then we work from the left to the right, right? If that sounds all complicated, it's not. That's the way we read. That's the way most of us have learned to read, I should say. So we start at the top and we go, what's our outermost thing? That purple thing, that's our container. That's where we want to start. So I'm going to come back over to my code. I'm going to take out my hello world because I don't want that showing up in my final weather app. And I'm going to do my div class equals container. Now I save that and I go back over to my browser and my browser doesn't have anything in there. Of course not. We didn't put anything in the container. We just made the container. So we're going to go back in and say, all right, we've taken care of this purple container. Now we're working our way in. What's next? That blue box. What is that blue box? That's my first row. So I come over, I'm inside my container, and inside my container, I'm going to do my first class equals row. Okay. Still have a plain white screen, still don't have anything in it. But what's important here is I'm making sure my indentation is on point. I'm making sure that everything's lining up. I'm making sure I'm one step over. And now I come over here and I've got my first column. Now I do my div class call. And we can not only make that call, because we sized all of this out, we've got a rough idea of how big that column should be, right? We've got our 2, 4, 6, 12. This one's 6, which means this one's got to be 2, this one's got to be 2, and this one's got to be 2. So we're going to build that in right out of the gate. We're going to say col 2, and then I'm going to say icon. We're not going to worry about filling the content in there yet. The first goal of our page before we put any content in is just making sure our rough layout is complete. I'm going to pause there, give you guys a chance to catch up. If you save, you should have the word icon showing up in your browser. And it's still red, that's fine. Now, if you share your screen and it's not working and your indentation is wrong, I'm going to use a Batman slap. Make sure that your indentation is right. Make sure that you understand why we're indenting. Even if you got it working, that is not the final step of learning how to code. Yes, Jen, the icon is just a placeholder. And we're going to use all placeholders until our whole layout is done. And then we will go back in and start not only putting in the content, but styling the content. Now, this is not the approach everyone takes. Some people like to focus on just getting one thing perfect and then moving on to the next one. I personally think it's easier to get all of the content laid out and looking like it's in the right spot. And once it is, then filling in the content and then going in and styling the content. Everyone works a little differently. This is just the approach that not only works best for me, but I think also works best for beginners. Okay, everyone's looking good. Anyone need another minute? Okay, so now we go back to our drawing and we say, okay, this is another column. Where is that column? That column is not in this column. We know that pretty easily visually, but where is that column? that column is still inside my blue row. Well, I'm going to come back over to my code here, and I'm like, I got 3 closing divs, and I have no idea what the heck they all go to. So before I get any further, I'm going to help myself out with some comments before I create my next column. So I'm going to click on this div, and I'm looking at this div, and it's for my col2. So I'm going to add myself in an HTML comment here that says end of icon col. Now, I could have said end of col2, but hold on, I'm going to have 3 different col2s. That comment isn't going to be helpful for me. So instead, the computer doesn't care what I do in here. The computer's not reading any of this. So I'm going to leave myself a note as to whatever is going to be the most helpful for me. I'm going to, Natasha, you should practice getting the indentation fixed yourself. It is important to understand that indentation and why it's indented. So go through, get your tabs, get your cursor at the right spot, tab over to indent, shift tab to unindent.
Okay, it's just so manual. Okay.
It is manual, but you'll notice I haven't had to fix my indentation at all.
Yeah.
That's because while I'm going, I'm hitting enter and checking my indentation. And if my cursor's at the wrong spot before I type another letter, I'm going to get that indentation right before I keep going. So even though it's very manual, that repetitive nature of the pain of fixing it is going to make it so that when you do write it, you're going to try and get it right as you're writing it.
There's got to be an easier way. I'm like lining up letters, and is that arrow underneath that arrow? And
so you want to make sure you're not using the space bar. You're always using the tab key.
Okay.
The tab key will help you. You almost never want to align with space. You almost always want to align with that tab key.
Good information. Thank you.
And yes, these little light, those faint gray lines are also there to help you out as well. Okay, I'm going to finish out my comments here because I feel like these are going to help me. So I'm not going to just say end of row. I'm going to say end of first row, and then I'm going to be even more specific. What is all of the stuff in my first row? Because we could have 40 rows in this and not know what's in that row. This first row to me looks like it's all the current weather information. So I'm going to say end of first row, current weather. And then I've got one final closing div down here, and I don't know what it is. So I'm going to click on that closing div. I'm going to trace this line up, which got a little bit lighter. I see my div is highlighted. Oh, that's the closing for my container. So there I'm going to say end of container. Okay, now that I've got all of that in there, I'm lost. Where the heck were we? Well, we had our first column done, and we know that that div is closing out here. We know that whatever this next column is that's coming in is still in my second row, that blue box that I have selected. So that means I'm going to come in here. I know that this is the end of my column. I know this is the end of my row. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end of that last column and hit enter. And you'll notice my cursor immediately took me to the right level of indentation. So I'm going to add my div in here and hit enter. And all of a sudden, because I hit enter, again, I'm at that right level of indentation. So as soon as we start to not fight VS Code and trust it a little bit, those indentations start to fall into place. So all we're going to put in here is the word temp. Now, before I go on to anything else, I've got a closing div that I haven't labeled here. So I'm going to help myself out. I'm going to put that comment in, and I'm going to say end of temp col. All right. Hopefully this is all clicking. Hopefully this is all making sense. I'm going to go a little bit faster to finish these next two columns. Just keep in mind that while I'm going to do another call 2, this last one needs to be a call 6. So go ahead and practice getting the rest of those in there. I'm going to call this details. Say end of details call. I completely spaced on that last one. There should be a call class on each one of these. So I get my 3 call 2s in, and then the last one I need is my div class call 6. And that's going to be my location information. So I save, I come back over to my browser, and this is what I should have. This is your end result. Just relaunch the poll. So when you are done typing, if you are following along, go ahead and vote in that poll. If you're still working on it, don't vote in the poll. And if you are someone who is not following along and just take notes, you can use that no, I'll catch up later option. And if you've made it over the finish line and it looks like this and your indentation is incorrect, go fix your indentation. Almost half the class voted in. Take your time on getting this working and just remember to vote when you are done. One more minute here. Got most of the class in, over halfway, well over halfway. Do one more minute and then we'll keep going. If anyone needs help, if anyone thinks they have it in and it's not looking like this, or it looks like this but smaller, that's totally fine. But if you don't have it looking like this and you think you're done, you can also raise your hand and I can help you out.
All right, Max. I like know what I'm doing. I'm just a little slow, so
Do you need help?
I don't need help. I'm just
Okay.
it's just a little slow for me.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Speed comes with experience. Right, we got most of the class voted in here, so we're gonna keep on going. So we get all of this done, and we're like, all right. Yeah, Rain, everyone's font size is smaller. I have mine blown up in the browser just so it's easier to see it while I'm screen sharing. But it's no big deal if your font size is smaller. If I go, that's the default font size. That's probably what you guys are seeing. I just have everything zoomed in on my browser just so it's a little bit easier for it to be seen on the screen share. Okay, so I've got my stuff showing up, but I'm not done. It may be tempting to go back in and start putting in the content yet. I want to finish my layout entirely before I get into that. So I'm going to go back to my preview, and I'm looking at this, and I hit this last orange box, and I go, okay, orange means my columns. I'm done with that. Now I'm reading left to right. I go down to the next line here, and before I can even get started in my columns, what do I need? I need my next row. But before I leave this document, I can't just start putting in my row. It's important to not only know what I'm putting in, but where am I putting it in? This row is going to line up right underneath where my last row was. So I'm going to go into my code. And because I've left myself good notes, here's the end of my first row. So I'm going to put in my next div class row. And before I even put a single word in there, I'm going to leave myself a note that says end of second row. And then I'm going to say forecast. So that way I know, hey, if I end up with 40 different rows here, what's in that row? That's my forecast row. Okay, from here, you may notice an issue. How many columns do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 12 divided by 5 is not an even number. We end up with a decimal, or we end up with a remainder, right? And we're like, well, that's going to be problematic. We don't want one of these columns to be slightly bigger than the others. How do we tackle that? Well, if we don't specify a size, if we just call it a col and don't specify a number, a dash something, it will automatically make each one of the columns all equal sizes based off of how many are in there. So if we don't specify a size, Bootstrap's going to help us out and be like, all right, we'll make those columns all the same sizes for you, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to type in day number 1. And then I am going to copy and paste that 5 times. If you really want the practice, if you're really practicing your indentation, it's fine to type that out. But I'm going to just change these so I've got day 1 through 5 showing up. I save, I go back over to my browser. Now I've got my day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this probably looks like the ugliest website you've ever made. That is okay. In 30 minutes, in 28 minutes, you are going to be shocked at how close we can make this website feel like our screenshot. But very important that we get this done first, because now look at this. We have written 42 lines of code just to get our layout right. If we get our layout right, everything gets much easier from here. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nested tags deep. If we were trying to get our content in, we probably would get lost in those divs and not remember what's opening and what's closing. So the approach that I like to take is get all of the layout done first. Now you're looking at this and you're like, well, it's not super pretty, but if we look at this and we compare it to our screenshot, you can kind of see where that layout is going to fall into place, right? So get our layout done. I'm going to give you guys a minute to catch up here. Make sure you've got your second row in place. Make sure all your indentation is correct. Make sure your layout looks correct. Make sure you don't have any days kind of wrapping down by accident. Make sure your icon temp details and location are all lining up and look like mine do. Take a minute. Make sure you go through and understand why we have those closing divs, how we figured out in the mockup, what size that column was. Make sure we understand what colors are coordinating with boxes, all of that stuff. Take a breather, because we just got a major win here. We got the entire layout for our site done. So we want to look at the layout, and I know one of yours is broken. Don't lie to me. I know one of you have a broken one. Raise your hand if you need help. We can go through it and figure it out. Or if you're still working on it, that's fine too. Give everyone a minute.
Max, while we're waiting, can you just show the copy and paste one more time? Because I tried to use it and then I don't think I was putting it in the right place, so I just typed it out manually, but.
For
can
the
you
live
show one
share?
more time?
For the
Huh?
live share?
With the way that you copied and pasted it so that you didn't have to do day through 1 through 5 individually. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
so
think I was putting my cursor in the wrong spot.
Yep. So I highlighted the opening div to the closing div for just that column. Hit enter at the end of that div and hit paste. And then
Okay.
every time I pasted after that, I hit enter before I hit paste to make sure the indentation stayed correct. And then I went through and just updated the numbers manually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, final call for help here. Anyone need help or just another minute?
So you do the copy and paste for me one more time?
Yep. So I highlighted from the opening div all the way down to the closing div and hit copy. I put my cursor at the end of the div and hit enter, which gets my indentation in the right spot. Then I command V to paste. And before I paste again, I hit enter, get my cursor in the right spot, and then paste it. Enter, paste, enter, paste, enter, paste, and then just manually go in and update the day numbers. The little things, right, of like learning to trust VS Code. When I hit enter, it's putting it at the right spot. Then I'm going to paste it in. Okay. So we've got everything in here. I've got two different things that I want to tackle. First things first, in my preview, you can't really see it, but I've got this nice, let me actually load it from here. I've got this nice gray border around everything, and I've got this horizontal line. Those are two kind of structural components that are really anchoring out the style, right? It's making that website really feel like a website, feel like it's one contained component. So I'm going to tackle both of those before I start loading in all of my content. I feel like that's just going to make it feel like we're making progress a little bit more. You could do this step at the very end and it would be exactly the same. This is all just how I personally, as a senior developer, would approach this site. So the first thing I'm looking at is, all right, what does that styling apply to? That light gray border that goes around everything, that almost looks like where my container is. My container is holding all of that content. Why don't we try and apply the content or that border to the container? So I'm going to come back over to my code here. I'm going to pull up my style.css. So I've got a little room to work in it. And I'm going to take out this body color red because there's nothing in the design that's red. That's just for us to test. That's just to make sure our pages are linked, that the style is talking to my index. So I'm going to take that out. Then I'm going to go up in my code and I'm going to find my container. My container is a class. So that means that in my style.css, I need to put a period, and then I can put the name of my selector container. Okay, now that I've got that container in, what am I going to apply to get this line around the outside? That's a border. So I'm going to say border, and then border takes three properties: the size of the border, the line type, dashed, solid, that kind of stuff, and finally the color. So I'm going to say gray. I'm going to go ahead and hit save on that. I'm going to go back to my browser, and I now have a gray box around it. I'm going to pause there, make sure everyone's got a gray box. Sorry, I was not scrolled down in the chat, so I was missing your messages. Rain, you had a question about this syntax. This is just a comment. So this is allowing you to add in some text that the browser is going to ignore, but just helps you out to understand it.
I'm sorry, Max, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
You asked a question at 7:49, and I'm just catching up on it about what are these this syntax, the exclamation point, double dashes. That's just to input a comment.
At that time you were mentioning that we had to add a comment, and I remembered the tag for it. So
perfect. Yep. Just making sure that I wasn't ignoring you. All right, anyone need help with their gray border? Okay, so now I'm looking at this and I've got like a three-sided one, and I can very faintly see that my border is up at the top, but it's at the very top of the page. What CSS property in the box model do I want to use to take that whole box and push it down on the page?
Margin.
Margin. Now, why don't I want to use padding?
Because it pushes out.
Because that border is still going to stay at the top, and all of the content inside the box is going to get pushed down. So to show you that, show you what's wrong, you don't have to follow me on this one. If I put padding at the top of 100 pixels, we can see there's now all of this white space up here, but that top line didn't come down at all. So I'm going to go back over to my code, and now you can follow along with me. I'm going to put my margin top in there, and now it's jumped all the way down, and my gray border has come with me. Okay, maybe 100 was a little bit overkill. Let's back that off a little bit. Let's try 20. All right, 20 feels pretty good. Now I'm looking at my mock-up, and the only other thing that I have, let me load it on this one, is if you zoom in, that border has a nice little rounded corner on it. So to apply that, all we need is a border radius, and we'll do it of 10 pixels, and that gives it just a nice little curve on the edge of that border. Randy and Shannon, you better watch, and Danny, your mics are not going to be muted one of these days, and we're going to hear all the jokes. Okay, so we got our container in here. The last thing that I'm noticing as part of our screenshot is I've got this nice line running across. Now, we could apply that line as a border, right? We could say, hey, go find our first row, and at the bottom of that first row, put on a border. Or we could go to our second row and say at the top of the second row, put a border top in there. Both of those are completely fine and would work. However, what we're going to do instead is use something called an HR, which is a horizontal rule. So I'm going to go find the bottom of my div class row. That's right in here. I'm going to click on that div. I'm going to follow that all the way down. And here's the end of my first row and the beginning of my second row. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end. I'm going to say HR and put in my horizontal rule. I'm going to go back to my tab, and now I've got this nice gray bar separating out the top from the bottom. So I'm going to pause here. We should have our gray border. We should have it nice and rounded. We should have a little bit of breathing room up on the top, and we should have our horizontal rule. And the biggest, most important thing about that horizontal rule, make sure you have it placed between the end of your first row and the beginning of your second row. We're going to take a 2-minute breather here, not because I think you guys need it to catch up, but because we just did a fuckload of coding here. So we're going to take a moment, go back through all of this code, take a breather and say, do I get these concepts? Do I understand how we applied multiple styles to the container? Do I understand what literally every single letter, every single syntax, every single curly brace, everything is doing here? It's not enough to get it working. We want to make sure that we understand why it's working. Question remotely. 2 questions remotely. Yep, go for it.
Okay, Max. So I get the whole code. I just can't figure out where I went wrong because my bracket is like, it's not going in a row. I can't figure out where I went wrong in the code.
Okay, in the CSS side or HTML?
The HTML.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look.
So it's down here.
Okay, so we're going to hone in on that. I'm going to request remote. And your code is up here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got our first div class row, but then what comes inside of our row? So if we look at this whole thing is the row, but before we get started, what do we need? The column. So we come in here and I'm going to add in your div class column. And this closing tag is actually this closing tag here. So now you've got all of your other columns right, and you've got the end of your closing row right. So if we save that and come back over, why aren't you using your go live?
Isn't that on?
No. There we go. There's your go
Okay.
live.
Okay.
So you would think that you're done at this point because it all looks right, but you're not.
Okay.
What you want to do is come through here and say, hey, because this col is indented, all of these should be indented as well. And now it's much easier to see because this is the end of my div for the row, all of these columns are inside of it.
Right.
And it's amazing when you get your first column wrong, how everything else after it can break. And so the
Right.
trick isn't worrying about everything that's broken. It's about identifying where it breaks first.
Right.
That's how we knew, hey, everything above this is fine. It's just the second row that's the issue. Let's look at our col and hone in on that.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Rain, you're up.
Okay, I swear, I believe I typed everything exactly like you have it. However, when I go to Reveal Finder and let me go back. And you know the border going around it, mine's is square and yours is more rounded. Where's the difference at?
I added a border radius in my CSS
Okay,
of 10 pixels. Do you have that?
hold on 1 second. Yeah, I do. It's my 4th line.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look.
All right.
You're gonna hate me.
I didn't save it. Oh, Control S.
Click into that pane first to make sure it's like focus, and then Command S it, and there you go.
Okay,
And don't do your reveal in Finder. That's an old school way of doing it. Instead, swipe back to VS Code and hit your Go Live button in the bottom right. And that way, when you save the changes, it will live update for you.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
That a shortcut is if you hit Option Command R while it's selected, it'll open the file up for you.
Command R,
Option Command R.
Option Command R. Okay, thank you.
Will that open the file though, or start it in live server?
It'll open the file and then you can open it from there.
Gotcha. It's probably better to use that live server only because as you save your changes, it will live refresh for you, as opposed to if you open the file, you have to click in the file and hit Command R to refresh it.
Okay. Thank you.
This is all we're doing tonight. So once we get through everyone who needs help, we're going to call it quits. So if you've got it working, you understand it all, you are welcome to head out. We will start with content tomorrow and doing some additional styling on that. And then we will certainly spend time on Thursday going through terms, making sure we're understanding all of these. So as you're going, if you're keeping a note on the side or have a text file open for vocab terms that you're learning, we're going to go through all of that tomorrow. Palash, you're up.
So you said like in Bootstrap, every row is divided in like 12 columns,
Yes.
but and which kind of makes sense in the top row. It's like 2, 2, 2, and 6. So
Yes.
that adds up to 12. But the bottom one has like 5, which is like it's not divisible by 12 plus.
Yes.
Does that mean like if we just use CO, just the call class and not call 1 or 2 or 3, like we can add like as many as we want?
You can, and it uses equal spacing for all of those columns. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can put like a col 6 on one of them, and then the rest of the columns will be evenly spaced of the 6 that is left.
Okay. So can we do like this thing, like have call 1 and call 1 in the beginning and 1 in the end, and do like 2 to 5 times?
You can, yes.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
No problem. You couldn't do 2. Oh yeah, you could do a 1 and a 1. The only thing that I'll say is that if the content can't fit in the column, the content will kind of spill out of the column, and then that can cause issues like down the road of all the columns not being able to fit. So it's very rare to see a col one, but not unheard of. But yeah, the grid system is very flexible. In the earlier versions of Bootstrap, like Bootstrap 3, you had to specify a size. You couldn't just say like equally space these out. And you couldn't go over 12 without like changing the core of Bootstrap itself. But Bootstrap has gotten very flexible over time. It upgraded from using tables to make the grid system work, to using Flex, to using actual CSS grid under the hood. So the browser is actually using like native CSS technologies to make the grid work. But then we kind of take advantage of it by just using the classes that Bootstrap provides to us.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Corwin, what's up?
It's nothing too crazy. I just, for some reason, I have the gray bar in between separating the two. I don't have the gray border that's going around the actual.
Okay. Do you have the 5 lines in style.css? You do. Okay.
Yep.
So the problem is probably something with your link tag. Go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
All right.
Everyone else, you're welcome to hang around and kind of see what the other problems are or head out. Totally fine either way. Okay, so whenever we are targeting a particular class, we have the class name in here, which is good, but how do we represent the fact that it's actually a class in our CSS right here?
Oh.
So for IDs, we use hashtags. What do we use for classes?
Oh, do I need to add a dot?
You need to add the dot down here in your selector.
Okay.
There you go. Save
That's
and
all
see
it
if that
was.
does it.
Yep. Wait, hold on. Let me see.
Make sure your HTML is saved as well.
Let me. No, it still has a line straight through the middle, but not the border around it.
Oh, you're missing the word solid again.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Down
Never mind.
in line 2 of your CSS before the color and after the.
Yeah, that always gets me.
To be fair, you had to fix both of them.
Yeah.
Delete the W and save. Yeah.
It went through still. That's surprising.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
No problem. That's what I'm here for. Ozma, you're up.
So I have the code up. I keep
Second
refreshing
time.
my Google Chrome and I have the HTML at the top. It's not going away.
Share screen. So save your index.html. I don't think that's the problem, but it might be.
Okay.
You have to click into the index.html half and then hit save. And you're missing your opening arrow tag for line 1.
Oh, okay.
That might be your problem. Okay, so you haven't saved that because you click down in the bottom half. It only saves the half that you are like clicked into.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having an issue with that.
So there you go. Now it's saved. Did that fix your issue?
It's all gone.
Beautiful. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, who's next?
It was me.
Go for it.
So to put a space in between, what do you guys, how you guys do it with? I'd never used Bootstrap that much. I did with Tailwind, so I don't know. Like, I was trying to figure out by myself, but I couldn't.
You're a stronger man than I for using Tailwind. It's a much steeper learning curve than Bootstrap.
Oh yeah,
and more powerful, to be fair.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. I mean, never learned Bootstrap that much.
So are you talking about the space at the top of the page to push it down, or are you talking about like the line between the two rows?
So, you know, like you make, can I show my screen?
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick?
Go for it.
Hold on. All right, share. Wait, wrong
Yep,
screen.
that worked.
Did it?
Yep.
Okay. So you see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was doing the homework. So you know how can I put a space in between 1 and 2, like in the rest of them?
So we won't have borders around them, which will make it look like they're not. So here, this is going to make more sense if I explain it. So what we're going to end up doing is
hold on.
I'm remote.
Sorry.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. What we're going to end up doing, and this is a spoiler alert, so no one follow along. This will make more sense tomorrow when we actually do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to put a text center up here, and then we'll not have a border around them. And so, oh, do you have to individually center them? You might have to individually center them.
Oh, damn it. I kind of figured that, but I never tried.
So the border, that doesn't answer your question. Like there are ways, that's called the gutter. The gutter is what comes between columns. But because we're centering all of them, it will become less obvious that all the columns are kind of touching. And so it won't really be a problem.
So, like I want to make it exactly the way you did it. That's why I was gonna ask, because I was gonna put the gray in the background and space them out evenly. That's what I was trying to do. I did look up the gutter properties, but it didn't work for me. I guess I don't know why.
Gutter is a little tricky, and it's not a concept that I would teach like intro. So yeah, the way that we do it is we just use the straight up columns and then we center the text in them, and that's what makes it look like there's space between them. You can also use padding, but when you use margin, it gets a little weird on applying margin on top of Bootstrap properties.
Yeah, it flips the around.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. Okay.
But it's looking good so far.
This is good, or
yeah.
Do you want me to just submit like that?
Yeah, this is fine. That would get full credit for me.
All right. So, and you see here, the div call. I didn't put a row here, like, you know, I just put a div because I think it worked better that, because then it uses the whole space.
Yeah, that's fine. The only thing I'll say is you shouldn't use columns unless they're in a row. Because the alignment sometimes gets like offset from them. So if you use a column, I would just put it in its own row, or if you don't really need the columns, you can just not use a column or a row and just use a regular div.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, looking good.
This for now, and we'll work on this later on, I guess. Oh, did you leave? Okay, good.
Yes, I stopped it.
All right.
All right, guys, we are over class time, so I'm going to hang around in case anyone has questions or needs help. But starting tomorrow, we'll start loading in our content and applying those little individual styling items to make it all feel like a proper weather app.
So you want me to just submit the file on the desktop that I have? I have a homework file, so I'll just
submit that. And if you have an external CSS file, also submit that.
I'm going to submit the whole folder. Oh, do I have to do by file? Or
I think you have to do file by file, or you can like right click and compress it, the folder, and then upload the zip.
Okay. All right.
Either is fine. Like I said, I'm going to stick around just in case there are any questions, but you guys are welcome to head out. Nothing new coming your way.
Just to kind of piggyback off what he said, when we use the HR, I thought that, oh, if there's a horizontal, then there must be like a vertical. And there wasn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just wanted to try it out. This was kind of messing around with it, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
It kind of
If you want a vertical, you can do like a div with a certain height and then put a border left on it. So it kind of shows up the same way. Horizontal rules are a little old school. Like most developers would use just a border bottom or border top these days. But I think there's value to teaching that, right? Because it is a nice like visual separator. So I have seen it go both ways, but there are some things that just make no sense. Like, why is it font dash family, but text color or text decoration? Like, pick all font or pick all text. CSS like made the bad decision to call them two separate things, and now it's forever that way. Same thing for vertical rule. Like, yeah, that makes total sense that there would be a vertical rule, but there just isn't.
Okay. I just wanted to piggyback off of that. Thanks. Good
Yeah,
night.
no problem. Have a good one. Think we're all set. So we'll see you guys tomorrow.